Right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's Cuppa Club with Simon Jukes and Emma Goodwin, who are respectively CEO and Deputy CEO of Fair for You Enterprises, which is a community interest company wholly owned by the Fair Credit Charity. My name's Jerome Heusinger. I am the Senior Development Manager at Ethex. Throughout this year, my colleagues and I in the investment team have encouraged and championed the development of an increased presence for Ethex in the area of ethical and affordable finance. We've seen the tremendous social impact which can be generated, and we're committed to widening understanding and appreciation of the sector, as well as strengthening its capitalization. I would encourage you all to read a blog recently published on our website, which explains more broadly what this sector is all about. And watch this space. There will be more generic materials to accompany specific offers, such as Fair for You. Before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. Cuppa Clubs are recorded and made available to watch. This is not a financial promotion. It's designed to be educational and informative. And should you need advice, please talk to an FCA authorized person who has experience in advising on investments such as these. The Cuppa Club usually runs for 30 to 45 minutes and is an opportunity to meet and ask questions of Emma and Simon. What motivates them and their team? What is a CDFI? What functions do they perform, and why are they so crucial? Why is Fair for You such an impactful organization? What are its goals and how are they achievable? What would your investment be funding? Please feel free to ask questions in the chat box and we'll respond to them, or at least try to, as we go along. Just before Emma and Simon introduce themselves, this current offer will provide funding for Fair for You to grow their business, realizing their vision to help 226,000 customers access affordable credit by 2028. This will create multiple benefits, including financial savings, better mental health, and improved credit ratings for the future. In this specific bond offer, Fair for You are targeting £500,000 with an interest of 8%. Investments in the bond are eligible to be held within an IFISA. Right, apologies for the lengthy intro. Simon and Emma, if you could introduce yourselves, including an overview of Fair for You and what you're aiming to achieve through the latest bond offer. Perhaps touch on some of the broader issues I mentioned, while I'll try to incorporate relevant questions that come in via the chat function. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome, and thank you to investors who have already invested in Fair for You through Ethex. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today. Emma and I will introduce ourselves, and then I'll give you a short introduction to Fair for You and what we do and the problem we're trying to solve. And then Emma will talk about the bond and what we will achieve with the raise. So firstly, I'm Simon Jukes. I'm the Chief Executive of Fair for You. I've been in the role over 2 years. For the last 10 years, I've been Chief Executive of a number of UK-wide social enterprises in different sectors, including, yes, financial services, but also healthcare. And prior to that, I worked for the UK government in defence and cybersecurity communications. And as a former civil servant, I guess the Nolan principles in public life are sort of embedded, ingrained in my psyche. And that squares very, very clearly with Fair for You. Perhaps we'll say a bit more about that later on. My expertise is in scaling and growing social businesses. And I think probably the phrase I dislike most is not for profit. We might come on to that later as well. But that's all for me for now. Emma.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Emma Goodwin. I'm the Deputy CEO here at Fair for You, and I've been with the business for about 5.5 years, so since the middle of 2018. I'm a chartered accountant by trade. I qualified in my youth back at Deloitte, and I worked predominantly in corporate kind of FTSE listed businesses across a mixture of sectors, including financial services. The opportunity to work at Fair for You came across then, and I grabbed it. I personally wanted to work for an organisation that had social purpose, that made a difference to people's lives, and that wasn't solely in existence to create value just for shareholders, but had that kind of wider definition of value that went to beyond its customers, but also in terms of a societal impact as well. So in my role, I currently look after our existing investors and our prospective investors and our finance team predominantly.
Thanks, Emma. So what's a CDFI? What's the problem? What they're trying to solve? What we're trying to solve? And I suppose the point here is that there is a gap that we've got to try and bridge in the next 20-30 minutes, and that is that by virtue of the fact that you're on this call, you are probably not one of our customers. Estimates vary, but mainly because the numbers keep increasing. But according to Fair for All Finance, according to a number of other studies in the UK, there are around 15 million people who struggle to get affordable credit in the UK. Of those 15 million, between 6 and 8 million people have little or no credit history, and they are excluded from mainstream financial services. They're people on low income families, perhaps people who rely significantly or wholly on benefits, or people who suffer life shocks, whether it's falling ill or losing their job, and all of this impacting on their credit score. And these are the people that we serve, the people with the lowest decile of income in the UK, people who are unable to get any a credit from mainstream financial services, and their only options really are to go to illegal lending, to go to very high-cost predatory lending, or to go without. Now, we've got a couple of video clips. They're very short, just to highlight some of the things as we go through today. And I'd like to show one of the first ones here today from one of our customers called Jennifer.
I am Jennifer Lawrence. I'm 40. I live in Aberdeen, Scotland. Several years ago, I had to approach a bank for a loan because at that time I had problems in trying to support my family. I was working at the time, but when I approached the bank, even though I could afford the repayments and everything was perfect, I was declined. All because of the fact that I was on a low income wage and I had had debt when I was 18. And I was in my 30s with this, and it was debt from a credit card, £100 credit card when I was 18. And because I was stupid and naive and thought, it's okay, I got caught up with that. And it had been paid, cleared for years, but it still affected me to get a loan.
Thanks, Emma. So we help people like Jennifer. Jennifer, one of our customers, this is what CDFIs are all about: community development financial institutions. There are about 50 or so of them in the UK. Some that specialize in lending money to businesses, enterprises that have a good business proposal but can't get finance from a mainstream lender, and then organizations like Fair for You that lend money as a personal lender to individuals like Jennifer who are otherwise forced to borrow from high-cost lenders at a risk of clearly spiraling or increasing debt. Now, so why CDFIs? Why not, for example, credit unions? I saw a question ping up there. Credit unions do a fantastic job. We have great relationships with a number of them. There are 250 or so more across the UK. They're community-based often, and they have a very different business model to what a CDFI does. At Fair for You, We provide instant lending decisions for people who have no connection with us. They're not savers, as often credit union members have to be before they can borrow. And also we specialize in smaller loans, micro loans, loans averaging of about £350, whereas often credit unions can't make that work, and they have to, and they lend greater sums beyond £1,000. Fair for You was set up, therefore, with this backdrop, knowing how difficult it was for people like Jennifer to get a loan for essential household items. We were set up in 2015 to combat and try and combat the poverty premium, where in a family where a major appliance, washing machine, fridge, goes wrong, and there's no savings in the family to buy a replacement. And the alternatives for that family are either to go to a legal lender, to go to a high-cost lender, to perhaps buy false economy, a second-hand refurbished appliance, or to do without. And that's the poverty premium, because each of those options costs a lot more than somebody who has a decent credit score and who could borrow some money in order at a lower interest rate to purchase a new item. So we developed a business model whereby we can lend to people like Jennifer sustainably, effectively, affordably, and responsibly, so that she can get a new item, a new appliance, and then and therefore it is not subject to that poverty premium. Since 2015, of course, our business model has expanded, and we'll touch on some of the work that we do. We don't lend cash. We lend on prepaid MasterCards as well, and we've had some significant successes with some of our retail partners like Iceland Foods for and on that particular model. Before we've got another quick clip that we want to play for from Jennifer, and then I'll hand on to Emma. But we need to address the APR issue, because
the items they had, I was like,
oh.
It was the same as
Sorry.
AO or Very or anything like that. I was like, it's going to be the same as that. It's going to be too high in interest. I'm not going to be able to afford it. And when I put in what I needed, which was 2 items, I was shocked at how much the payments were. I was like, that's nothing. It equated to about £75 a month, which was perfect. It was under even the budget of what I'd had with the high street shop. And within 6 months, 7 months, it was paid.
Thanks, Emma. So let's just look at the APR issue. We charge 64.8% APR. That is 4.25% per month on outstanding balance. And you may then be wondering, how come we are cheaper than other organizations with lower APRs? The reason is because we bake in the assumption that our customers will miss payments. We do not have penalty charges, either for late or for overpayments, and we have no annual fee. So for micro lenders like us, an APR is a very unhelpful way of measuring how much our customers pay. If we take a £100 loan, APR is calculated on the fact that you take out the loan on day 1, and on day 365 or week 52, however you're calculating it, you've paid nothing, and you therefore end up with a sum of £64.80 in our case. But that, of course, doesn't happen. For our customers, they take out the loan on day 1 and they start paying it off. And if someone keeps to plan on a £100 loan over 12 months with Fair for You, they actually end up paying just under £29 interest, an APR or an interest rate of 28.5% or 29%. And of course, if our customers overpay, as many of them do, then that interest rate for the year is even lower. So what we find is that APR is inapt, and actually when you look at some of our other competitors, if you like to use that word, we are much cheaper than than, for example, Klarna. I know Klarna's mentioned 22% APR, but of course each missed payment is £5, and it doesn't take many missed payments to suddenly have an equivalent interest rate of north of £22, so of 22%. So it is a difficult thing to get across to people who are used to perhaps having a much lower APR. The way I would suggest you might look at it before I hand over to Emma is that, you know, you are looking at this from an APR that you could probably get on a loan of about 6, 7, 8% down here, and we're here at 60, 64, 65%. Customers like Jennifer, their option is 1,000% APR. They're up here, and to get an option of an APR down at where we are at 64, 65% is very unusual indeed, and that's why so many of our customers, tens of thousands of our customers, come back to us time and time again. That's why we have Trustpilot scores of 4.8, 4.9%, 4.9 out of 5, and why we are being feted by so many social impact reports as being an organisation that others should follow in terms of business model to provide services and loans to affordable loans to people like Jennifer.
Simon, this is such an important message to bring across. And just to hook this into the previous discussion about credit unions, surely people could go to a credit union and borrow at a much lower APR. I think I know how you're going to answer that, but that's an important question.
Yes, don't forget our demographics don't quite match up. So people who we serve, as I said earlier, are really in the lowest income bracket in the UK, and that means that quite often, actually, not just credit unions may not be lending to them, but also they're unable to get, for example, buy now, pay later type of services either. So we've got to put that into perspective. Also, credit unions tend to want you to be a member of the credit union before you can borrow. Our business model is that people apply online to our website for a loan instantly. They get an instant response and can go and purchase the item that they need there and then.
There's 2 more points I'd probably add, if that's all right, Simon.
Of
and
course.
One is around flexibility here. So I think for our customers, the flexibility of being able to make changes to their payment plans is really important. So their income fluctuates in terms of what they receive, the frequency when it comes in, and so having kind of fixed payment options for them is often quite a challenge. So sometimes it can be, I can't pay you today, but I could pay you in 2 days. And we allow our customers to change their payment plans with us in terms of frequency whenever they want. So they can change from weekly to fortnightly, monthly to 4-weekly, whenever they want. There's absolutely no fee for doing that. They can do it pretty much 24/7 via their online dashboard to be able to do that, so that it flexes for them, so that they allows them to minimize the chances of missing a payment. And that's really important for them because that income is so inconsistent sometimes in terms of the timing. And often some of the other providers don't allow you to do that. They'll often charge you for the ability to do that, or there's a long time lag, or you have to re-sign your loan agreement and things like that. We allow them to do that frequently, which I think is really something that our customers benefit from, particularly if there's a one-off, event that's happened. It's somebody's birthday, it's Christmas, there's challenges that come with that. The other piece is just going back to the average loan size here. So for a lot of credit unions, they're really struggling to do smaller loans, like Simon has mentioned. We work with credit unions, we talk to them, we're at a lot of the similar events. And sometimes to be able to do a £100, £200 loan is really difficult for a credit union. From a financial perspective, it's challenging for them to do that. So either they have to decline the customer and say, I can't provide you with that small loan, or they're having to encourage the customer, I can't give you that, but I could give you more. There's an ethical question there around, should we be encouraging people to take out more lending than perhaps they're originally intending to? So I think there is a really valid place in the sector for small micro lending for those that are able to do it. And we've been able to build our business model with the tech that enables us to do that small lending really, really well with the flexibility that customers need. So I think absolutely there's a place for credit unions and other providers in the market, but I think what we are offering is slightly different, and you know, it depends on the customer. And what we would always encourage the customer to do is to look at what's the best option for them at that time. You know, if required, we would give wealth warnings and things like that to support customers to make the best decision. But at the end of the day, we have to enable customers to make that decision themselves.
And it is a, you know, it is a collaborative sector, unsurprisingly, with 6, 7, 8 million people falling into this bracket. You know, with the investment that we're seeking, we'll be scratching the surface in terms of people that we can serve. The other thing I'd just quickly add before handing back to Emma to talk a little bit about the bond and what we aim to do with that, is of course that with every single payment, even on the smallest loan, every single payment that our customers make benefits their credit score. So that ultimately we're trying to help people out of this situation, this exclusion, financial exclusion situation they're in order to help them to get eventually mainstream credit through a better credit score. Emma.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the bond offering. So I can see that there's been some questions about the rate of return that's being offered on the bond. So in context, that is based on the rate of return that we are required to pay to our existing social investors. So, you know, our existing social investors charge that on the funding that we have already secured, and therefore we made it equivalent to that. I can confirm that there is not expected to be any interest rate rise to our customers on the basis of this deal at all. That is all been calculated to be affordable based on our model. Our model is slightly different from others in the sector because we have retail partnerships, which allow us to earn an additional income stream through commission. And that is what enables us to be able to pay this 8% compared to perhaps some others who don't have that additional income stream. So it is not being charged onto our customers, to give you comfort from that. And the other piece that I was going to talk about is about that social rate of return for every pound that's being invested. So if you've been able to have a look at some of the paperwork around the social impact work that's been done, for every pound that's been invested into Fair For You, the social return of that is £16.60. So there's a huge social return in terms of what's being delivered via Fair For You for its customers. The other point that I'd make is more about a qualitative social return as well. So if you look, as Simon's mentioned, at our Trustpilot reviews and at customer testimonials, that's where we really hear from the people who are struggling, the people who are, you know, at the coalface of what's going on with the cost of living crisis, of the impact that Fair For You has made for them. And I would really encourage you to go and have a look at that. You know, I looked at it this morning in the last kind of reviews in the last few days. There's things like Lifesaver, you know, Lifeline. And that's what Fair For You is for a lot of people. It's not for everybody. I think that's the point that I'd really want to make, is that we are not stating that everybody should be going out and taking credit and everybody should be taking credit from Fair For You. But for our customers who this works for, it works for them incredibly well. So I've seen that there's a comment here around online as well. So I'm just going to cover that on that basis too, that, you know, what the point we're making is that there's absolutely still a place for credit unions, there's still a place for other suppliers, but for people who want to be able to operate online, who want to be able to work, you know, get a loan from wherever they're based, whether they're in a city, whether they're in, you know, a region, whether they're in somewhere in Scotland that's got limited, you know, accessibility, they can do that via Fair For You. And that's really attractive to a lot of people. And that's what we built our business model to do. It doesn't mean, as I've said, that it's for everybody, and we would not state that. But for the customers that we serve, that flexibility and that ability to operate online, to be around 24/7 via their dashboard, to make changes, to know when their payments is coming, is something that's been really, really recognised by customers and that they find really, really useful. So as we've mentioned, we're looking at this funding to grow our loan book. So we know, as Simon's mentioned from research, that the, you know, the customers that are struggling is going up. There's 1 in 4 people have got low financial resilience. You know, 3 million people borrowed from loan sharks in the last 3 years, and these are the kind of people that we're keen to move, not, you know, away from those providers to safer, more ethical, regulated providers. And that's the most important thing, is that there needs to be regulation to support customers in any case should things go wrong. That's the danger of some of the unregulated buy now, pay later, and the danger of loan sharks. And that's what we want to move customers away from. So we know there's a huge population that need help to access credit for essential items and services. And I think we'll all agree that that situation has only been exacerbated by the recent cost of living crisis, where everybody's budgets are squeezed. And if your budget was already minimum, has been squeezed already, there really isn't much more, left for people to go to. So the first point is around growing that loan book, being there, being able to have the capital to support the customers who want to come to Fair for You and want to use our services. The second point is around technology. So, we're planning future enhancements to enable our customers to do more self-serving, so they've got that confidence 24/7 that they can deal with what's ever happening on their account. We want to focus as well on consumer understanding. I think that's something that, we're all really aware of, is that finance and finance education and the, legal agreements that come with these things can be quite complicated. There's certain amounts that we are obliged to include. We really want to improve how customers are able to understand and make sure they know what they're signing, video tutorials, different bits and pieces that go in that dashboard to enable people to feel confident and empowered to make their own financial decisions. Also, the third point I'd make is around innovation. So to date, we've been going since, excuse me, sorry, the end of 2015 is when we first started lending. And since then, we've developed 3 different products in that kind of short space of time. And as part of that, we want to innovate further. So whether that's product development or through the way that we assess a customer's creditworthiness. So traditionally, creditworthiness is assessed by looking at a credit file. We know that for some customers, that's not the most, the easiest way to be able to lend to them, because, they've got a potted credit history. So we look at open banking. That's the piece that's come into the sector more recently. We know there's a challenge with some of our customers around trust in big financial organizations and trust around open banking. So there's a piece that we'd like to do there to support customers to feel confident in doing that. And finally, then it's about what's next. So, so we've had credit files, we've had open banking. What's next? What's the next thing that we can look at to be able to better assess somebody's credit score, credit worthiness, to be able to lend to them? So that's what else we want to do with the money. So it's those points around tech and innovation that are key to be able to deliver the growth plan that we want to do.
Could we address a couple of the issues raised by Mark? And the first one is very sort of very structural and sort of philosophical. And he ends, I would much rather see a lowered rate on the bond and more radical change in your rates and offerings given to the market. Could we address that, and perhaps the resilience of your organization were you to contemplate that?
Emma, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I think this point, and Mark, I'm sorry if I'm misconstruing it, is around the pricing of offering new products for customers. And so just to give some context here, we have looked at, and it is in our strategy to continue looking at kind of secondhand options and charity shops and things like that. As part of our shopping card option, we're keen to be able to put some of those retailers on. A challenge that we've had is that a lot of them are local rather than being kind of national. And even if the charity is national, sometimes the actual shop is kind of local. So it's something that we are looking at to be able to provide access to those kind of options for our customers. But it's something that's quite difficult to do technologically to be able to get all of those customers, all of those shops onto our card. So yes, it's something that we're looking at, but it's the reason why we went with original kind of new products at the start, was because we were a national offering and we wanted to be able to offer customers the same kind of quality of product that they would be able to get, that anybody would be able to walk into a shop and get. So in terms of pricing from our suppliers, we work with 2 main suppliers on our core product offering, and they are obliged in their kind of agreement with us to offer the same prices to us that they would offer to equivalent customers. So our customers are not being charged any kind of premium, they're getting the same. And it's the same with our shopping card. When you put money onto the shopping card, our customers can go into our kind of stores like Argos or Currys and buy exactly the same as everybody else would, and be able to make the most of kind of sales and offers and things that happen there. So that's what we're trying to do, is give people the access to something that we feel that they are entitled to, and should be able to have access to from that perspective.
Shall I, Emma may not be seeing, I've got some of the questions coming through, Jerome, if you're happy for me to
Sure.
take some of those. Yeah, I noticed it from Christopher, and I might come back to Emma on some of those as well. Can I just talk about the social rate of return that Mark has flagged up as well? That this is a bit of a dark art, actually, if I'm honest. We don't conduct social impact surveys on our own business. Those are done by independent analysis companies and people and organizations that specialize in social impact surveys. We've used both the Center for Responsible Credit, who did an impact value for us in 2020, and the one that we've attached, and we're very happy to share that one on the platform as well, Jerome. But we shared the more recent 2022 impact report, which was done by the Financial Inclusion Center. There are standard formulae that these guys use in order to calculate social return on investment and social return on and social impact. And that has a number of different variables, as you'd expect, including because somebody, I think Mark said, basically, surely anyone lending any money at all would have a social return, probably. But the fact is that we're lending to people in a specific demographic where the impact is much, much greater than it would be lending £350, to use your own or to Emma. So that the calculations that they do cover a whole range of different metrics in order to get to the numbers that they do. But the important thing is that we don't do it. It's an independent survey on our performance. The other thing I wanted to just to cover was in terms of illegal lending. Illegal lending is a blight on our financial system. As payday lenders, who we have no love for, were regulated and are being regulated out of the market, and doorstep lenders equally regulated out of the market, there is a gap, and that gap needs to be filled by organizations like CDFIs, like Fair for You, like credit unions, and many others, because otherwise, in that gap, illegal lending loan sharks fill it. And the most recent report by Fair for All showed that over 2 million people in this country are using an illegal lender, and that cannot be right. We work very closely with all the financial institutions in our sector and the government to try and lobby hard for government to do more in enabling an ecosystem whereby we can all work together more to help the customers that we serve. And the other thing I wanted to just to highlight as well, I think Christopher came up with, which is about the card. Yes, it is our shopping card and our food club card are for specific retailers. They're retail partners that share our values. Importantly, they're retail partners that sell essential household items, and that's important. So yes, we do have only certain retailers on those cards. That means that the person cannot misspend the loan. We're helping people to help themselves, and it's something that our customers tell us they like. It also means that the items that they can buy are, as Emma's already said, at the same cost, same price as everyone else is purchasing them. So they are restricted. It means that the loan can't be, then the card can't be used in a retailer that we wouldn't approve of. Final thing I'd say is, what's an essential item? I'm sure that question is being typed as we speak. We've used Maslow's hierarchy of needs as blunt an instrument as it is, to give us a sense of what we should be focusing on in terms of our retail partners' items that our customers can sell. So the first 3 levels of Maslow's hierarchy, mainly focusing on food and clothing, those essential household items, and some technical goods as well. So we'll see that for most of our retail partners, that's what they sell. Emma, do you want to cover? There are a couple of questions here about our business model, length of the bond, and also the debt levels and arrears.
Yeah, that's fine. So like I said, we started, Fairview started at the end of 2015, started solely with its core offering, which is a loan for a particular product with our retail partners, Whirlpool and Sea Supplies, and then developed its shopping card offering in 2020 and its food club specific offering in about 2021, went national in 2022. The bond offer is for 5 years. And as I've mentioned, the purpose of this money is to grow our loan book, so to give us the capital to be able to support more people, and to look at extending our technology provision and our innovation in terms of product development, and also in terms of how we assess customer lending. I'll pick up on the provisioning question. So our net lifetime provisioning is 12%. So the way that we look at provisioning is that we provision when we've had a certain period of no payment and when we've had a certain period of no contact or anything with the customer. So we minimize our provisioning risk through the flexibility that we offer. So the fact that we enable people to change their payment frequency, but also to change their payment amount as well. So we allow people to come onto a reduced payment plan if something has happened to change their financial circumstances since they took out a loan. So it could be that the original loan agreement was for £10. Something's happened. So for a couple of months, they say, I can't afford that. Can I pay £8? We are absolutely fine with that. We advise them that that means that the loan term will end up being slightly longer and that they will pay slightly more interest over the loan term. But if they're happy to pay that, then we will accept that and we will work with them to get them back up to the original payment level. And we also accept overpayments as well at any point. So a customer can overpay one-offs. They can overpay on a regular basis as well. So sometimes we'll tell, if the loan payment comes out at £10.50, we'll always offer them to say, would you like to round that up to £11, because it means that you'll pay off your loan faster and you'll pay less interest overall. So we positively encourage customers to overpay wherever they can. And then we will provide, as I say, once we get to that point of no contact from the customer, no active plan being in place and no payments being received. The way that we collect, we retain all of our debt collection is in-house. So we will work, we communicate very frequently with our customers. So we will text them, we might call them, we might email them at various points throughout the journey. Obviously, we're obliged to send default letters and termination letters from a legal perspective when we get to those stages. But we will always encourage customers to get back in touch with us, to update us on the situation and to work with them as best as we can to get them back on some kind of plan that works with them. Because obviously, if they're able to make some payments, we can reflect that on their credit file rather than having no payments and defaults. Just as well in terms of debt. So obviously we will send, as I've said, legal letters where required. We don't sell our debt, we retain it all in-house, but we continue to collect after we've provisioned as well. We don't stop. So we will look to, if it's reached the point of provisioning and we've had no contact and no payments from customers, we may look at a CCJ as an option if we feel like that's a relevant thing to do, or we will attempt to apply for a deduction from their benefits at source via the DWP to be able to repay that loan. So we continue to collect. Our preference is always for a customer to come back on a plan organically with us directly, because then we feel like we're better able to understand their position, better able to support them and potentially lend to them again should something happen. So it's very rare for us to see a customer take out a loan and not pay us anything. We have various kind of mitigations in our scorecard to stop that happening anyway. But what we tend to see is that a customer will take out a loan, pay for 3 to 4 months, and then something happens that changes their circumstances, which means that they can't pay that anymore. And what we will always encourage them to do is, like I said, is work with us to keep on a plan so that we can help them through rather than moving towards a provisioning perspective, because it impacts obviously their ability to get lending from and credit from elsewhere, as well as their ability to obtain any future lending from us as well.
If we could we change tack slightly and address Christopher's question about the extent to which the government has acknowledged this vacuum, if you like, in financing in certain sort of segments of the market. To what extent is that taking place? Do you lobby? it might be worth mentioning the difference in terms of maturity for this market here compared to the US. And then also, could you discuss the support and endorsement that you get from quasi-governmental institutions and charities? And I'm thinking your support from Responsible Finance, Fair for All, and Centre for Responsible Credit. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful, but I think it's important to cover.
And we've let's just unpick some of those. Responsible Finance is a trade body that's for CDFIs and for both personal lenders and business lenders. We are a member of Responsible Finance. We work very closely with them. We help them to lobby government on aspects of legislation, regulation that impact us and the sector. And we work closely with them. We have a lot of data, 40,000 customers, clearly anonymized. We can provide a lot of meaningful information about what our customers are finding and the experiences that they have. I'll leave Emma to talk about about some of the investors that have already been invested in us. In terms of the illegal lending, just briefly, it is a very difficult topic to get accurate data on, because if you ask people, and we've done it ourselves with our customers, have you ever borrowed from the following? We list a whole group, a number of different options, payday lenders, mainstream lenders, banks, credit, have you used your credit card? If you put down illegal lending or a loan shark, people tend not to tick it. But if you say, have you borrowed from friends or family, then often people do tick it. And because of the nature of the way illegal lending works, sometimes it is a friend, somebody that they know who's lent them some money. So it's very difficult to get meaningful, accurate data on the extent of illegal lending. The most recent report, as I said, by Fair for All Finance, which is an arm's length body, government, it has said about 2 million people currently, and I think that's probably about right, if not higher than that. But we work with the illegal money lending team and others to help where we can with their fight against illegal lenders. Emma, current investors.
Yeah, so our existing investor base includes a variety of social investors, so Tudor Trust, Fairfall Finance, Barrow Cadbury, Esme Fairbairn, Social Investment Scotland, Big Issue Invest, among others. So a huge proportion of the existing trusts and foundations have invested in Fair for You, and for a lot of those, they've been invested since the start as well. I'm just going to, as well, whilst I'm covering that, pick up on Mark's clarification on his question around the rate on the bond. So as I said, the rate on the bond is reflective of the rate that we're currently paying on our existing funding. The proportion of this investment versus our existing investment, this is relatively small compared to some of the investment that we've had to date. And therefore, if we were to lower the rate on this bond, we wouldn't be able to lower our APR to our customers because of the existing funding obligations that we have to meet. It's something that we want to do, to be clear on APR. Our intention is to lower our APR. Unfortunately, with base rates and things happening as they are, it has impacted the cost of debt for us, which meant that we haven't been able to do that yet. But it is definitely something, to be clear, that we want to do, that our board is invested in doing, that our charity trustees are invested in doing as well.
I was just scrolling down to see if there was other.
I missed anything.
There was something about APR and it's lower. That yes, we in CDFIs, personal lending, we have the lowest average APR than the other personal lenders, many of whom are in 3 figures. Yes, that's why I'm saying that we do have you do get a lower rate at Fair for You, as you would with other lenders in our space, but because of the lack of, I think it was more about the penalties and the lack of penalties and the flexibility that Emma talked about, that we build in to the fact that we know our customers are going to miss payments. We know that they have erratic incomes, they have 0 hours contracts, they may not be able to afford 1 week or 1 month. And because we build that in, because there's no penalty, it means then that the APR doesn't really work in the way that it would for other businesses, where there is a penalty, and you have to take that into account when you're looking at how much people pay back in total to a lender. We are very transparent about how much you pay back as a result when you get the loan, as a result, because of the lack of fees and penalties, etc.
I was just going to add on that as well. We have done an exercise. I'm just trying to answer. I think it's still Mark's question, around that percentage of interest rate that people are actually paying in real life. We have done an exercise of everybody who's paid off their loan to get an average of what the real rate is, and it did come out at 26% versus the APR that that is quoted on our website. So that's the reality of what people were paying. In terms of the annual profits in the paperwork, yes. So the historic profits are on page 19 of the offer document. They should be. And then there's a separate section around financial projections a couple of pages later that is our projected profits. Yeah. I was also just going to touch on, sorry, Simon, the one around shopping cards. So yes, we have designed a shopping card that looks like a credit card, if that makes sense. So it's not fashioned as a gift card or anything like that. It's something that we're very aware of, that we don't want people to get to the till and not know what to do with this card that's been offered to them. So it's why we're planning to move to chip and pin, as well as from a security perspective, but also from a perspective that it looks just like any other card and that you just go and spend at the till, just like any other customer in the store.
And some interesting APRs there from other CDFIs: Moneyline 239%, Five Lamps 217%, Fair Finance 341%, Salad 79%. So what we were saying about we are the lowest of those.
Yeah, and we're obviously very grateful to Mark for asking us a bunch of difficult questions, because it's important that these things are teased out and discussed. He in particular is asking about specific examples you also discuss how APR is misleading. It seems you argue that the overall extra paid per pound borrowed is substantially lower at Fair for You than elsewhere. And I don't know if it's included in the materials, but you mentioned it earlier on. There was a very good impact report published last year by Centre for Responsible Credit on your Iceland activities. There's some very, very specific answers which would address Mark's issue. So after this call, I'll check that those materials are on our website, and if they're not, we will make sure they appear. But just to follow on from that, the Centre for Responsible Credit, which is independent, it's a registered charity, it works to improve the way that credit is provided in lower income households. Their conclusion is as follows, and I'm sorry to take time to do this. We therefore recommend that the core business of Fair for You, which provides access to affordable credit for the purchase of essential household items, continue to be supported by social investors, and that efforts be made to scale it up further as part of their response to the cost of living crisis. We urge local authorities and housing associations to do more to alert their residents to the services provided by Fair for You. Now, I might not be neutral, but I think that's a very strong endorsement of what you guys are doing and the impact and the value that you're creating. Again, it's all in a report which we'll make sure is on our website.
Thanks, Joanne.
We spent. Are there any questions that?
Yeah. Really good question there for Keith on multi-language support. So our website is in English. We have a fantastic customer experience team where we do encourage people to contact if they're having any difficulties at all. And our team, I think I'm right in saying, but I will check and come back to you if it's not accurate, but we have about 9 or 10 languages spoken amongst the customer experience team.
Okay. Look, I think we've kind of exceeded our time. Would either of you like to provide a wrap or a final call to action?
I'm going to leave it for Emma.
Oh, thank you. I guess it's just this is what we need you for. You know, it's this point around, you know, choosing to invest in Fair for You will enable us to do more, to change more lives by lending better, by, you know, encouraging people to stay within that regulated financial environment rather than moving to, as we all know, you know, loan sharks and other options. It's trying to keep people in that safe environment where we can help give provision for, you know, essential items, to look to improve their credit files and eventually repair them so that people can move on that journey more into mainstream credit and be a support for them, not a crutch, but a support for them to in these difficult times, I think is where we would go. That's what we need you for.
Well, thanks very much to both of you, Simon and Emma. You've answered the questions brilliantly, I think. So look, the offer is open. Please go to ethex.org to review it. It's off to a really good start. It's been open for a week. It's also available for an IFISA. And just to close by thanking you both again for your time and thanking everyone for their questions.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to come today.
That's a pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye.